So the quadratic formula will solve any quadratic equation that you can give it, which is nice because not all quadratic equations can be factored. So if we look at number one, if you were going to solve this with factoring, first thing you would do is get it equal 0, right? So we want to move this to the other side. When you move it, it simply changes sign. You're just going to subtract 10n on both sides, and then it's going to move. So we're going to have 3n squared minus 10n minus 2 equals 0. So you want them in ABC order, just like if you were going to factor. Now, if you would go to factor this, draw the star, and we're going to do a times c, so 3 times negative 2 is negative 6 on the top, and then b, negative 10 on the bottom, 3 on the sides. So we're looking for two numbers and multiply to get negative 6 and add to get negative 10. But that's not going to happen because we're throwing things that multiply to get negative 6 is 6 and 1 and 2 and 3. None of that's going to get you to negative 10. So this, we need a better way. That's not going to work. So we have this quadratic formula. All right, so the formula is negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over, a big fraction, all over 2a. So we have our a, b, and c from our equation, and we just take those numbers and plug them into this formula, and we have our solutions. So let's go ahead and try this. Okay, so our b is negative 10. So we're going to take that negative 10 and plug it into negative b. So we have a double negative. So that's going to become positive 10 plus or minus, we have square root, and then we have b squared. So b is negative 10 squared. And then minus 4 times a is 3 times c is negative 2. Extend the square root, and I'm going to put it all over 2a, so 2 times 3. And once you got everything plugged in, it's just a matter of evaluating. And so you're going to start by evaluating everything inside the square root. So everything in here you're going to do first. So negative 10 squared is negative 10 times negative 10, so that's positive 100. So we have 100, and then we have negative 4 times 3 is negative 12, and then multiply negative 12 with negative 2. It's going to give us a positive 24. So that's what's underneath our square root. And before I bring everything else down, I might as well add these together. So that's going to be the square root of 124. And then I have this plus or minus right in front of there. That 10 is going to drop down. On the bottom, I have 2 times 3, so 6. And for now, that's all the farther we're going to take it. That would be your two solutions. Later, we will learn how to simplify a square root, and then we can obviously simplify it further, potentially. But this plus or minus gives you your two solutions. So you could split it up to be a 10 plus the square root of 124 over 6, and 10 minus the square root of 124 over 6. So every quadratic equation has potential for two solutions, and that's where they show up because of this plus or minus. So every time you do one of these, you're just using that same formula and just plugging things in. Okay, so let's take a look at number 2. So the first thing you want to do is always get them equal to 0. So we're going to move this 18 to the other side. To do that, you're going to change the sign. So we have 6n squared minus 12n minus 18 equals 0. And then once you have it equal 0 and it's in ABC order, then you plug into your formula. So the b value is negative 12. So we're taking the opposite of negative 12, so positive 12, plus or minus square root of b squared, so negative 12 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 6, times c, which is negative 18. And then I put it all over 2 times a, so 2 times 6. All right, now it's just a matter of evaluating everything on the inside of the square root. So negative 12 squared is negative 12 times negative 12, so positive 144. Then we have negative 6 times 4 is negative 24 times negative 18. So 24 times 18 is going to give us 432. Double negative, so that's going to be a positive. All right, so we have 144 plus 432. I'll write this down here. So that's what's inside the square root. And if we go ahead and add those together, we're going to come out with 576. Bring down the plus or minus, bring down the 12, and we have 12 on the bottom from 2 times 6. Now, interestingly, 576 is actually a perfect square. So the square root of 576 is 24. So what that means is this one actually could have been factored, and then we do need to split it up into our two answers. So we have 12 plus the square root of 576. Yeah, 576 is just 24, so I'm going to just bring 24 down. So 12 plus 24 over 12, and then the other answer is going to be 12 minus 24 over 12. Okay, and then we just simplify each of these, and then we have our two answers. So 12 plus 24 is going to be 36, divided by 12 is going to be 3. So there's one of our solutions. 12 minus 12 is negative 12, divided by 12 is going to be negative 1. So there are the two solutions for this one. All right, number 3, let's do that one. It's a little bit different. It's already equal to 0, so we don't need to rearrange things, but we're missing the b term. All right, so there is nothing there, so you're going to put a 0 in there for the b. Okay, so when you go to plug into your formula, you're going to put in 0. So the negative b is just 0, plus or minus the square root b squared, so 0 squared, minus 4 times a times c. So negative 4 times 9 times 3. What's your big fraction? 2 times a is 9. Okay, so now we're going to evaluate everything in the square root. 0 squared is 0. Negative 4 times 9 is negative 36. Negative 36 times 3. It's going to be negative 108. So I have 0 minus 108 inside the square root, all over 2 times 9 is 18. Now, if you go to try to square root a negative, it doesn't work. It doesn't work yet. We will be able to square root a negative, so that's another thing we need to cover before we can solve these fully. But when you square root a negative, you get an imaginary number, which we will cover shortly. But for now, this is not a real number, so yeah, I guess just leave it with the negative in the square root, but we need something to deal with that, and we'll deal with that in a little bit. But the rest of them, they should all be positive. Some of them will come out to be whole numbers, like number 2 did. So after you get your square root answer, so once you get this square root of whatever it is, try square rooting it on your calculator. If the square root's good, simplify it just like we did this. If it does not square root, then you can just leave it like we did with number 1.